Have you ever stopped to think that the toy everyone wrote off as just a cute mascot might actually be the single greatest threat the prototype has ever faced? Today we are diving deep into a theory that changes the way you look at Dogday forever, and by the end of this video you might agree that Dogday could be the key to defeating the prototype. Let us start with what we actually know. The prototype is not just a monster stitched together from spare parts. It is described as the very first experiment inside Playtime Co., and it is the source of the strange black liquid that flows through nearly every horror we see in this world. That liquid is not random goo, it behaves like a hive mind, connecting every infected toy back to one central. Well, the prototype wants control, total and complete, over every toy in the factory, and every toy that carries its liquid inside them becomes an extension of its own body. That includes Huggy Wuggy, that includes Mommy Long Legs, and disturbingly that likely includes members of the Smiling Critters gang as well. Now here is where Dogday becomes interesting. Dogday was introduced as the leader of the Smiling Critters, a search and rescue toy built around loyalty, protection and courage. His entire design purpose was to find lost things and bring them home safely. That is not a small detail, that is thematically massive, because everything about Dogday as a character was built in direct opposition to the idea of losing something to darkness. When the Smiling Critters became corrupted, something unique happened with Dogday. Unlike Catnap, who fully embraced the darkness and became the enforcer of the prototype, while inside the orphanage Dogday appears to retain fragments of his original personality. He still barks, he still reacts with confusion and distress in certain sequences, and his behavior is inconsistent with a toy that has been fully and completely overwritten. This inconsistency is the crack in the system, and cracks in a hive mind are exactly the kind of weakness a story like this would want to exploit later. Think about how the prototype actually maintains control. It does not physically dominate every toy at every second. Instead, it relies on a shared consciousness spread thin across dozens of victims. If Catnap represents total submission to that hive mind, then Dogday represents partial resistance, and partial resistance is dangerous for a hive mind because it means the connection is not absolute. It means there is a version of Dogday somewhere underneath the corruption that never fully agreed to serve. This lines up with a bigger pattern we have seen across the entire Poppy Playtime universe. Every major toy that ends up helping the player in some way starts as something that resists its programming just enough to break through. Boxy Boo hints at manipulation rather than full corruption, and even Huggy Wuggy in his final moments shows something that looks almost like relief when he is finally destroyed, as though some part of him wanted the suffering to end. If resistance is a recurring theme, then Dogday fits that mold perfectly, and arguably fits it more strongly than any character we have seen so far. Now let us talk about raw power, because a key to defeating a villain has to be capable of actually landing the blow. Dogday is physically enormous even by Smiling Critter standards. He is built with heavy claws, a powerful bite, and enough raw strength to tear through steel doors as shown in game. We also know he can generate intense heat, and this matters because heat and fire are consistently framed in this universe as one of the few things that can genuinely destroy corrupted toy matter permanently rather than just damaging it temporarily. If Dogday retains control over that heat even partially while resisting full corruption, he becomes one of the only characters in the entire cast with both the physical strength and the elemental weapon needed to actually put the prototype down for good. There is also the matter of location and proximity. Dogday operates inside the orphanage, which according to lore is deeply tied to the origins of the prototype experiment itself. This is not a coincidental setting choice, placing the one toy capable of partial resistance directly inside the facility most connected to the prototype creation feels like deliberate foreshadowing. The narrative does not usually waste geography like that, especially not in a story this carefully layered with hidden documents and environmental storytelling. Let us also consider the emotional angle, because Poppy Playtime has never been purely about strength alone. It has always been about identity and memory. The prototype fears one thing more than anything else, and that is toys remembering who they were before the corruption took hold. We see this fear play out through Poppy herself and through the way the story treats memory as almost a weapon. If Dogday is the character with the strongest surviving fragments of original personality, then he may also be the character best equipped to trigger that same kind of memory-based resistance in others, essentially becoming a rallying point rather than fighting the prototype alone. Imagine a scenario where Dogday does not defeat the prototype through brute force alone, but instead becomes the catalyst that breaks the hive mind connection for every other corrupted toy at once. If his resistance is strong enough and stable enough, it could act like a signal disruption, spreading doubt and independent thought back through the shared consciousness. This would explain why the story keeps emphasizing his internal conflict instead of simply making him another mindless enemy. His inconsistency is not a writing oversight, it is set up. There is another detail worth mentioning: the recurring symbolism of light and warmth warmth associated with Dogday. His design leans heavily into sun imagery, bright yellow coloring, solar patterns, and heat-based abilities in a franchise built almost entirely around darkness, shadows, and a black corrupting liquid. A character defined by light and warmth stands out as a deliberate narrative counterweight. Stories rarely introduce that kind of visual opposition without eventually paying it off, and the most natural payoff would be Dogday standing directly against the entity most associated with darkness itself. The prototype skeptics will point out that Dogday still commits horrifying acts throughout his appearances. And that is a fair point to raise, but horror stories often use temporary corruption as a stepping stone toward redemption rather than a permanent state. If Dogday is shown early on to be more resistant than his peers, that resistance becomes meaningless unless it eventually leads somewhere. A resistant character who never breaks free is just a tragic footnote. A resistant character who eventually breaks free becomes the turning point of the entire saga. Put all of these pieces together and the theory starts to feel less like speculation and more like foreshadowing hidden in plain sight. A toy built around rescue and loyalty, a toy who retains fragments of personality when others fully surrender, a toy with the physical strength and elemental ability to actually destroy corrupted matter, a toy positioned at the exact location tied to the prototype origin, and a toy whose entire visual identity was built as the symbolic opposite of the darkness he now serves under. That is why Dogday could be the key to defeating the prototype, not because he is simply strong enough to win a fight, but because he represents the one thing the prototype hive mind can never fully control, which is a mind that remembers who it used to be. If this theory holds up, the next chapters of Poppy Playtime could reveal Dogday breaking free at a critical moment, turning his strength and his lingering humanity against the very thing that tried to erase him. And if that happens, he will not just be fighting for himself, he will be fighting to free every toy still trapped inside that same darkness. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you believe Dogday has what it takes to turn the tide against the prototype, or is this theory barking up the wrong tree? Either way, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Now let us take this even further, because there is a detail many fans overlook when they rewatch the trailers frame by frame. Dogday reacts to sunlight in a way none of the other smiling critters do. His entire body seems to draw power from it, almost like a battery charging, and that kind of design choice is rarely accidental in a game this detailed. If the prototype thrives inside darkness and inside that black liquid, then a character who literally gains strength from light sits in direct thematic opposition to everything the prototype represents. Some fans have pointed to this as proof that Dogday was always meant to be a counter-force built into the story long before players ever noticed the pattern. Add to that his role as a rescuer, someone whose entire purpose is finding what is lost and bringing it home, and you start to see a character who was never meant to stay lost himself. Every piece of his design, his personality, his powers, and even his placement inside the orphanage points toward one outcome, where Dogday eventually turns against the very corruption trying to use him. That is the heart of this theory, and that is why so many fans believe Dogday will not just survive the story, he will help end it. And comment down below with your thoughts, and like and subscribe for more mind-blowing Dogday theories.